mountains and over rivers. Older than the seas, younger than mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home.
What's going on, my fellow demographer enthusiasts? Today we will be exploring the exciting world of population shifts over time. This, of course, being a demographic transition. Hold on to your seatbelts and keep all body parts inside the vehicle at all times, because this is going to be one wild ride. The demographic transition model is based on historical population trends of two demographic characteristics, birth rate and death rate, to suggest that a country's total population growth rate cycles through 5 stages as that country develops economically. How do you get all of this information exactly? Well, first you have to take the crude death rate, which you take 1,000 people and see how many die, and that number is your CDR. And then take your crude birth rate, you take 1,000 people and see how many of them had babies, and that's your CBR. Then the natural increase rate comes into play by taking the CBR and subtracting it by the CDR, and you turn that number into a percentage. So if you have 1,000 people and 30 of them die and 50 are born, that is a 2% increase. The first stage of the demographic transition is a very high death rate with a very high birth rate. So because of those canceling each other out, the natural increase is low. The reason the birth rate is really high because a lot of children are needed for a liability asset to harvest crops and to plant crops. And then the death rate is very high because of disease and famine, and there's no medical advancements. And an example of this, we'll have an example going through each stage, and it'll be China, of course, and that would be China before the Silk Road era.
We've time traveled to India, 1971, an example of a stage 1 demographic transition with a high birth rate and a high death rate.
The second stage of the demographic transition, the death rate drops, and it drops because of minor improvements in medical care. And then the big things are going to be consistent water supply and sanitation. That's what's going to make the death rate drop the most. And then the birth rate, though, is going to remain high. And again, that's because a lot of children are probably going to die early. So a mother's going to have 6 kids and 4 of them are probably going to die. So just the more that they have, the more likely that they're going to have more kids to help them economically farm. And our example for this in China is China during the Silk Road era.
Today we traveled to the plains of Sri Lanka, out with the buffalo. This is our contemporary example of a stage 2 country in the demographic transition. Their birth rates are still high because they have a lack of knowledge of family planning and contraceptives, but their death rate is beginning to decline because of better sanitation and medical breakthroughs in the hospitals.
In the third stage, the death rate is going to start to plateau, but it's still going to be decreasing, and those biggest reasons would be for improvements in medical care. The biggest factor here would be minor diseases that we consider today, like smallpox or measles or mumps. Those are not going to be causing rapid deaths like they were in stage 1 and stage 2. And then again, that consistent water supply and just basic sanitation, that's just going to spring that life expectancy about 15 or 20 years. The birth rate is going to drop because of still improved medical care and diet, so the infant mortality rate is going to be lower, so the mom's not going to have 6 kids to have 2, probably going to have around 4 kids to have 2.
Now we're in Russia in 2013, our example of a stage 3 country in the demographic transition. Both their death rates and their birth rates are declining. We're now on the island of Jamaica, as you can tell. Back here with this Jamaican tree, you can tell it's native to Jamaica because of the way it is. This is our example of a stage 3 country in the demographic transition. Their birth rates are now declining because of better access to family planning and contraceptives, and the women are beginning to work more, and the death rates continue to fall because of better sanitation and medical breakthroughs.
Okay, the last actual known stage is the fourth stage. So we're going to have a really low death rate, and that's going to be because just of all the advances in medicine. Not so much things like basic water and sanitation that are going to prolong life 15 or 20 years, but a surgery or antibiotics that may just prolong life for another 5 or 6 or 7 years. So it's still going to get a little bit lower, and the birth rate is going to become lower, not because of anything necessarily medical, but because of family planning, so contraceptives. And then a big thing is just a lot of women entering the workforces. They're going to sometimes put their education above starting a family, so they may get married when they're 25, and that's later in childbearing years, so they're going to have less children and be not more focused on their education and career, but definitely not as family oriented as the mothers would have been stage 1 through 3. So that's going to lower the birth rate into probably around 2.1, 2.2, just right at replacement level. In our case study of China, they're in stage 4 right now, but I'd say they're on the edge of stage 4, possibly going into some sort of stage 5, but that's not completely sure yet what stage 5 is going to look like for China or for the world in general.
Good day, mates. We're here at the border of Australia. This is an example of a stage 4 demographic transition country. Death rates are plateauing at this point, and birth rates are continuing to fall because they have an advanced society and women are focusing on their education and having smaller families.
Now to stage 5. Well, what is stage 5, you might be wondering? Well, we're here to tell you exactly what it's going to be by the knowledge we have gained through Mr. Tornetto's Hgap course. The world as we know it will be over, due to the following reasons. The birth rate will decline so much it will be an unrecoverable amount due to the aging population. There won't be enough people to replace spots in important jobs such as healthcare, engineering, education, and first responders. And with an only aging population that does not have a birth rate that is 2, so the replaceable rate, then the world as we know it, it's just going to end. And that's what stage 5 is.
Oh, we wrecked! Oh.
I'm so sorry, Wyatt. We were going too hard on our project.
We just had to put in all that work for Mr. T on Fleek's demographic transition project. Ah.